I say Latvia and concentration camps, you will probably think of the Second World War, but did you know that the Soviets installed a concentration camp on that island over there during their short-lived rule after the First World War? Because when World War I was over, the Bolsheviks seized power here in Latvia, and during their short-lived reign they perpetrated the Red Terror, in which countless of so-called class enemies were murdered or interned. This here is the terrible story of the Bolshevik Red Terror in Latvia. Keep watching.
The Bolsheviks believe that mass terror was a necessary tool in class struggle stemmed directly from Marxist theory and was formalized in Russia after the failed assassination attempt on Lenin in September 1918. Lenin had always accepted the need to use terror in order to defend the revolution. It was a weapon in the civil war. Of course, he was careful to distance himself in public from the institutions of the terror. Others put their signature to its death warrants, and this helped to fuel the myth that Lenin was a good and gentle Tsar who had nothing to do with the evil actions of his oprachniki. But behind the scene, Lenin was a stalwart champion of the Red Terror. When Bolshevik party member Lev Kamenev proposed to abolish the death penalty, Lenin flew in a rage and shouted, "Nonsense! How can you make a revolution without firing squads? Do you expect to dispose of your enemies by disarming yourself? What other means of repression are there? Who attaches significance to that during a civil war?" Many arrests that followed were random, because the Bolsheviks hadn't consolidated their power to build a well-functioning police state. If you would take a look in a Cheka prison, you would find inmates from all walks of life, from peasants to princesses, from clergymen to laborers. The Red Terror looked very similar to Stalin's later Great Terror in its randomness of the victims. The feared knock on the door at night could occur at everyone. The Bolsheviki justified their terror as a war against the counter-revolution, but who these counter-revolutionaries were wasn't entirely clear. As time progressed, the regime became more paranoid. Many of the victims of the Cheka, Bolshevik secret police, were bourgeois hostages. They were taken hostage to be shot once counter-revolutionary activities would occur. Most of them were innocent and just unfortunate to be around when anti-Bolshevik actions occurred. Inspired by Lenin's words that it was better to arrest 100 innocents than let one guilty person go free, Cheka leaders did their best to make the most arrests. We may never know the exact death toll in Russia, but the number must be in the hundreds of thousands. Just 2 days after the fighting in Western Europe ended, on the 11th of November 1918, the Red Army, backed by many Latvian Bolsheviks, launched a major offensive in the western borderlands of the former Russian Empire. Their goal was to take advantage of Germany's defeat and reclaim the territories lost under the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Facing little resistance, the Red Army quickly occupied Estonia and Latvia, capturing Riga on the 3rd of January 1919. When Latvian Bolsheviks had returned home, they were determined to build a model communist state, one capable of enforcing absolute revolutionary discipline. Their December 17th manifesto, the first document of Soviet Latvia, declared that the armed proletariat would destroy all remnants of the old order without mercy. To enforce this, they created a political department under the Interior Commissariat, replacing the Russian Cheka system to ensure tighter government control. They also streamlined revolutionary tribunals, limiting them to 3 judges, banning defendants from speaking, and carrying out executions within 24 hours. The Latvian Socialist Soviet Republic had been proclaimed in December and was led by Pēteris Stučka, a Latvian Bolshevik. After the Reds took Riga, the Latvian nationalist government fled to Liepāja on the coast. The Latvian riflemen, influenced by Bolshevik propaganda, supported the new regime, which imposed harsh revolutionary policies, severe food shortages, forced requisitions, and state control over trade worsened living conditions. Hunger, executions, and persecution of so-called class enemies, often ethnic Germans, created widespread misery. The future US President Herbert Hoover, then in charge of the American Relief Administration, helping war victims in Eastern Europe, described conditions in Bolshevik-controlled Riga from January to May 1919. Common criminals, as well as political zealots, were running amok, he reported, looting stores and dwellings, shooting hundreds of innocent people every day while many inhabitants were dying of starvation. Hoover's anti-communist fervor may have colored his terms, but conditions in Riga were truly appalling. In the 5 months of Soviet occupation, over 3,000 executions were carried out in the city and surrounding villages. 8,000 people died of starvation and another 10,000 were confined to concentration camps. Latvia became the first country to establish a state-run concentration camp system for political repression. On February 19, 1919, Interior Commissar Janis Lenkmanis authorized the creation of 3 camps, 2 in Kurzeme and 1 in Stukmani, now Plavinas. The Stukmani camp, built in an abandoned glass factory amid winter cold, held up to 1,600 prisoners under harsh and unsanitary conditions. Disease outbreaks, starvation, and brutal treatment made it infamous as the prison of horror. Following the anti-Bolshevik offensive in March 1919, most of western Latvia fell, leaving Stukmani as the main camp. Smaller sites existed like Zakusale near Riga. As German and Latvian forces retook Riga in May 1919, Bolshevik control collapsed. Plans to execute all prisoners at Stukmani were halted after protests from Red Army officers. Instead, 127 inmates were deported to Rezekne and later to Russia. The Stukmani camp was closed on May 30, 1919, marking the end of Latvian Bolsheviks' brief but brutal experiment with organized political terror. After German and Freikorps forces took Riga, White Terror replaced the earlier Red Terror with mass executions of suspected Bolsheviks. The rule of the rogue Germans was short-lived. In June 1919, a joined Latvian-Estonian army defeated the Freikorps at the Battle of Cesses. The Latvian government returned. The Germans, under Commander von der Goltz, tried to take the country with one last attempt by supporting General Vermont Avalov, a Russian adventurer who created the so-called Russian Army of the West, also known as the Vermontians. In reality, a cover for German troops. In October 1919, his forces attacked Riga, but were defeated thanks to Latvian mobilization, Estonian equipment, and Allied naval support. By January 1920, Latvian and Polish forces controlled the border regions and a ceasefire with Soviet Russia followed. After negotiations, the Latvian Socialist Soviet Republic was officially dissolved. Finally, the Treaty of Riga, August 11, 1920, formally ended the conflict. Soviet Russia recognized Latvia's independence, defined its borders, and agreed to return prisoners. Learn about the Red Terror under Vladimir Lenin in Soviet Russia by clicking here. Let me know your thoughts on this video in the comment section, and until next time.